Morning. So in your manifesto, you promised a growth plan which would include hospitality, which is an important part of London's economy. In fact, last year you had a press release about how important it was and how brilliantly it had recovered from the pandemic. Obviously, that was when we still had a Conservative government. Under the Labour government, the national insurance increase is a hammer blow to hospitality and other low-paid industries or industries with low-paid staff. What steps have you taken to lobby Labour to correct their damaging national insurance increase?
Well, it's important to look at the complete picture and to ask the question why there's been an increase in national insurance contributions from employers, and it's because of the inheritance from the government that he proudly supported. So the government's got to address the issue of the huge deficit they've inherited, and the two ways to do that is to reduce expenditure, basically speaking, or to increase revenues, and that includes finding additional ways to raise revenues. We've seen over the last 2 weeks concern about some of the measures to reduce expenditure with concerns around welfare benefits, and you're articulating some concern around the increased national insurance contribution. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not going to pretend that it's been easy for the businesses he's referring to, because he's right. If you're particularly a small business, it's quite difficult to add to your national insurance burden that you've got to pay, and I know how difficult those businesses are finding it. What we're trying to do from City Hall with the powers we have is to support them by making sure they've got more customers and they do better, to help address the issue of the additional overhead that they've got to endure. That's one of the reasons why I'm really proud of the plans we've got this summer to help the hospitality sector, alfresco dining, some of the events taking place during this summer, because I recognise the challenges you articulate.
UK Hospitality say that since the budget, the sector has lost 69,000 jobs. Many of those will be in London. It's a huge part of the London economy. They point out
the Assembly member challenges the mayor over the national insurance increase, calling it a hammer blow to hospitality and low-paid workers in London. She highlights that many jobs are being lost and staff on £25,000 a year are hit far harder than high earners. The mayor responds by pointing to the government's deficit inheritance and says businesses face tough challenges, but City Hall is helping by boosting customers and supporting summer events for the hospitality sector.
A staff member on £25,000 a year has been hit twice as hard as someone on £150,000 a year, such as yourself. It's just a badly designed tax rise. Forget the reasons for it. It's not a debate about that. That tax rise is badly designed and hits low-paid people worse. Why aren't you lobbying the government to reverse it?
Because I recognise, from personal experience, the consequences of a poor inheritance. And what the government's seeking to do is a challenge that I recognise, which is try and fill a black hole. And so, as I said to you, there are two ways they can do it. If the members suggesting other forms of tax-raising powers like a wealth tax, I'm sure he'll find colleagues on the Assembly who may agree with him. I recognise the challenges of the wealth tax as well, but we know there are consequences of any additional tax-raising provision from the government. I'm sure the Chancellor will be listening to the representations he makes. The Chancellor was with me on a visit to a hospitality venue in London recently, and so she knows the contribution they make towards our city. One of the reasons why I suspect the government is so keen to devolve additional powers to us, whether it's licensing, whether it's provision around Oxford Street, or other issues, is because they recognise that we can support the national economy more if we get growth in London.
You refuse to challenge Labour's badly designed jobs tax. Institute of Chartered Accountants has this week published their business confidence monitor. It came out yesterday. Quote, April's increase in national insurance contributions resulted in concerns about tax burden reaching unprecedented levels. This is among businesses in London. Why aren't you challenging the Labour government's badly designed and badly targeted national insurance increase?
I mean, the biggest reason all these businesses are struggling is because of a policy that he didn't once criticise, which all these organisations were against, which is the hard Brexit. And so we know a bigger factor affecting hospitality, a bigger factor affecting these businesses is
The Assembly member presses. Why aren't you lobbying the Labour government to reverse a poorly designed tax that kills jobs? The mayor deflects, arguing that hard Brexit and government deficits are bigger factors affecting businesses. He emphasizes supporting London businesses with trade deals, EU alignment, and local growth initiatives. But she points out that surveys show tax burden remains a top concern, highlighting a disconnect between priorities and action.
Hard Brexit, which is why I welcome the approach taken this week with closer alignment with our closest allies, France, and closer alignment with the EU, as well as trade deals with the EU, with India and USA. We shall support those sectors a lot.
I mean, that's just false. From the ICA survey, it says the tax burden remained the greatest growing challenge cited by businesses in the second quarter of 2025. I think what's striking is that you're very willing to challenge the Labour government when it comes to benefits, but you're not willing to challenge the Labour government over people who want to work, who are losing their jobs, people who are looking for jobs that no longer exist because of the NI. Do you not think that speaks volumes about your priorities?
Well, look, I'm somebody who's incredibly proud to be a pro-business mayor. I spent yesterday evening with some of London's finest businesses, a Business London event, and afterwards with some leading businesses across our city who do a huge amount to support the national economy. I understand the challenges businesses are facing in relation to the prevailing headwinds, and I'll do what I can to support them with the powers that I have.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't involve disagreeing with the government's stupid and regressive tax increases. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And you referred to poor inheritance, but one of those areas that the government did inherit that was in a mess was the NHS, which the national insurance rise is contributing towards. And you spoke about the fact about having to make difficult decisions, but also it's important that you have the funds to pay for services and balancing your budgets. Money raised through this change has been vital in providing the additional funding for the NHS. And since the election, NHS investment has risen by £29 billion a year, helping deliver over 3 million extra appointments and bringing waiting times to a 5-year low. They're going down every month. Now think about the Londoners that are waiting or have been waiting on those waiting lists, with 15% of Londoners.
The mayor defends a national insurance rise by explaining how funds are vital for the NHS, which has seen £29 billion extra investment, 3 million additional appointments, and reduced waiting times. He stresses that a healthier population means more productive workers, linking public services to economic growth. He also reminds the Assembly that years of austerity have left London dealing with underfunded infrastructure, healthcare, and public services.
Living with long-term health conditions. How is this helping to reduce inequalities in our city?
Well, one of the big issues, anybody who's employed people in the private sector or meets with businesses regularly, is the issue of productivity. It's very difficult to be productive when members of your team are off because they're unwell, physically or mentally unwell, waiting for an appointment, waiting to be diagnosed, waiting for treatment. So it's really important to recognise the consequence of 14 years of austerity, whether it's policing, whether it's the health service, whether it's lack of affordable housing, whether it's schooling. And by this investment from the government, record sums in just a year, what we're already seeing is reduced waiting lists, improved treatments, and that will not just improve the quality of life of those individuals and their families, but lead to increased productivity as well. I think the health of the economy is intrinsically linked to the health of individuals in our city, and that's why it's really important that we recognise that the inheritance meant not just the massive deficit, but also lack of investment in infrastructure and in the public sector.
Thank you. And free school meals, expanding breakfast clubs to £29 billion a year for the NHS that I mentioned, but the £11.7 billion for the affordable homes programme and the £100 million on homelessness prevention. This is a huge difference to what we saw with the previous government, which was frankly more of a chaotic tea party, except one of those probably has more adult supervision. Can you shed some light on how this government so far has empowered you to deliver on your manifesto pledges?
Well, the thing is, I mean, if people want to use the word woeful to describe the massive investment over the last 12 months, I'd love to see what is generous. But we are lobbying for resources which we are receiving from the government. Sometimes we will get what we want, sometimes we won't, and I won't be afraid to speak up for our city if I think we've...
The Assembly member raises concerns about the mayor delivering on his manifesto promises, particularly around housing and good jobs. The mayor highlights £11.7 billion for housing over the next 10 years, allowing councils, housing associations, and developers to plan confidently. He emphasizes long-term benefits like rent certainty, building safety, and keeping Londoners in the city, arguing that government support enables the city to deliver on manifesto pledges and sustain the economy.
The investment that we need. But just think about this £11.7 billion for housing in London over the course of the next 10 years. It gives certainty and confidence to councils, to housing associations, to developers in the private sector. On top of that, it means that we can plan for the future. Additionally, the government is saying they will give certainty around rent rises for the next 10 years, rent convergence, allow those in council and social housing to bill for building safety money. And so that, but also, really importantly, it means that people have housing they can afford to live in and stay in London. Really important for our economy as well. Look, don't be surprised by this knockabout Punch and Judy stuff from the losers. It's really important that we work with the government to support our city, the businesses, the individuals, the public sector, and those Londoners who understand the London promise. You work hard, you get a helping hand, you can achieve anything.
Assembly Member Best.
Thank you, Chair. One of the main pledges that you put in your manifesto was to create more good jobs, 150,000 by 2028. Clearly, that's made all the more difficult by the Chancellor's actions, seeing the fall in UK GDP, contraction of our economy, and unemployment rising rapidly. That has been compounded in Greenwich with a potential loss of 70 jobs at the Trafalgar Tavern because of an enforcement notice from Greenwich Council for their alfresco dining. Can you confirm you've made representations to the council and support the tavern in alfresco dining?
So, just I want to be helpful to the member. I've got an answer to the question later on in Mayor's question time. I mean, I can. I'm not sure.
Or have you made representations to the tavern?
We're speaking to the council, yes.
You are speaking to the council. Thank you. Could you keep us up to date with those representations and that letter?
Chair, what I'm happy to do is to, as with the earlier question, which I'll provide a written answer to, can I share with her the answer I was going to read out to save her time, and she can then come back to me if there's any additional stuff she wants me to do.
Thank you. I actually really appreciate that. Thanks.
The Assembly member cites a local issue, potential job losses at Trafalgar Tavern in Greenwich due to council restrictions on alfresco dining. She asks if the mayor has intervened. He confirms that City Hall is speaking to the council and offers to provide a written update on ongoing representations, showing that the city is actively supporting small businesses struggling under local regulations.